for another session of Real Talk. And today we're with Matt Honsberger. Thanks for coming over.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yes, because it's usually always done on Zoom.
That's right, exactly.
I know, so it's a whole different thing today.
In person is great. Yeah,
awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I really appreciate you being here, Matt. And I really want to talk about the stats and what's been happening. And so when I look at the stats, so I'm going from January now to the end of September, and I just pay attention to single family homes.
Yep.
So there was 403,000 homes that listed, and 2633 sold. So 2,633 homes sold. I got my stats right here.
Yep.
So only 66% of that inventory is selling.
Yep.
What do you think of that?
It's certainly down from what we saw in COVID. When the peak of what we measured in COVID was just north of 90% of what went on the market sold. It was never everything. It was never 110% of what was going on sold. We were seeing inventory shrink because, of course, there's always people that take their house off the market for whatever reason as well. But this is why we're starting to see the number of houses on the market creep back up a little bit. Yep. Not dramatically, but it's drifting upwards again. The amount of available inventory we measure in months of inventory, as you know, and that's drifted back up as well. It's not to the point where it's even quite balanced. It's still a seller's market, is what I would describe it as, but heading in the direction of a more balanced market at this point. So
I would agree wholeheartedly. And so we said 66% of the inventory is selling. And out of that, so the 2633 that sold, 42% are selling under asking, with the average being 42,588 over the whole year. I know the average in August was 52,000.
Yep.
Because when I'm looking at the numbers, I look at the original list price. So is it because we're listing too high, or...
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly never been a more challenging time in the 20 years that I've been in the business to figure out how to price a home. Strategy around pricing a home is wildly different depending on who you're talking to at this point, right? And some people think it's still a great strategy to price low and try and generate that kind of multiple bid scenario or auction type scenario. Some people are trying to nail the price right on, and you miss sometimes, right? And
Absolutely.
so that's one of the big changes that I would say the market has felt over the last 12 months is that it almost felt like you could put any price on a house and the market would figure it out 12 months ago. Now you have to be discerning again with that. So.
Oh, I totally agree. I was surprised. So if you look at these stats here, so I have between 500,000 and 600,000, like so in the 600s.
Yep.
There were 941 homes that sold.
Yep.
And then below 500, or sorry, below 400 or 499, there was 1,003. So I am still surprised to see the 941 homes selling between the 500 and the 600.
500 and 700,000.
Yeah. That's surprising because everybody's saying that it's unaffordable, yet the numbers show that. And I see a lot of sales come across my desk, and I would still say that this number, the 941, is local.
Absolutely, I agree with you too. Yeah, I think that's where we're at in Atlantic Canadian real estate now is that the price has gone up over the last 3 years. The transactions were going up to kind of describe why the price was going up. There was a huge amount of demand. Demand has softened significantly over the last couple of, I'd say 12 months. But prices remain the same, right? Yeah. And so we haven't seen a ton of inventory come back on to drive that back down. People who are reluctant about selling right now just aren't putting their house on the market, and it's maintaining price where it was. I mean, we're at basically the same price we saw at the peak of 2022 at this point as an average price. And so when you contemplate all that, it's why you're still seeing people have to go into the five to 700,000 range just for kind of entry level homes even. Right? So,
and then we had 1,290, let's say, that sold over asking. And then you and I talked about before we started here, there was a property that would have listed over in Dartmouth at $450 and sold for $750, $300,000 over asking price. That is not indicative of what's happening in this market. I was angry when I saw that, and you know what, I get riled up. And because the houses on that street are selling between $650 and $850 anyway.
Exactly.
So why would a seller? Do you remember back in the day? Wayne would have put a property on the market for $1.
$1, yeah, yeah.
Agents lost their minds.
Absolutely.
So how is that any different?
I don't think it is different. And in fact, I remember, that I was a member of the board at NSAR for a while at the Provincial Association. And bringing that exact point up is that I said, okay, well, you're going to outlaw putting it on for $1, but what is the difference if you just put it on dramatically low, right? It's worth 400, you put it on for 200. Well, you haven't really broken any rule there, but you've created the same scenario. It's an auction that you're creating there, right? And you're really not representing what the seller believes is the true value, right?
No.
And so, yeah, I really think that you're right, I don't think that's the strategy that most people are comfortable employing. I would have a tough time with that strategy or recommending that as an agent. But I understand what the theory is that, well, the market will decide what the price of our home is, right? I don't know that I
Well,
would
they
leave it
do
to
anyway,
that, so.
regardless of
They
what
do.
price you put on.
They do.
But you have someone with let's say a $600,000 budget is coming in to look at that.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're wasting their time
That's a real
because
challenge.
the seller is not going to accept it.
Yeah.
And
It's a real challenge. Honestly, one of the things that I have answered a lot over my career is, well, what happens if I make a full price offer and the seller says no? Don't they have to say yes to that?
No.
And of course, that's not the right answer. But it does feel awfully disingenuous of a seller to say, I'm willing to sell for $450 publicly online, and then you come in with an offer that's significantly more than that, and they just say no, right? That just doesn't feel like. I always go to other examples outside of real estate where, if I'm advertising to sell 99-cent hot dogs at the market, someone comes in and offers me $2 for them, and I say no. That's a weird transaction. You know what I mean? That just is
Why
a weird
is that any
thing.
different?
So it doesn't feel a lot different here. But that's what we've seen coming out of this crazy, I would say, 36-month period, is that pricing is so hard that some people are saying, I'm just not going to bother. I'm going to let the market take over.
Yes, but we're not in Kansas anymore. It's here. This is real.
It's true.
And I saw that there were 60 homes that sold over $100,000.
Yeah.
So I do realize that that's happening.
Over the list price.
Right.
Yeah.
In, let's say, markets such as Sackville, which I think is phenomenal.
Yep.
Is it fair to say that that's even happening it's happening in the South and the West End, where during COVID, those two markets didn't do well?
Yep. Yeah, they were proportional to the rest of the market. You're right. They didn't have as much aggression in the market from buyers, and so we're still seeing it everywhere. It's certainly more select now. It's not like at one point again we talked about how many homes were going over the list price, and it was north of 90% were going over the list price. Right. That's not what it is anymore, and certainly the level of the amount of money over the list price that you have to spend has come down on average.
Oh.
But there are still some where the euphoria takes over and everyone wants it, and there's 15 offers and it goes, $125,000 over the list price. Right? So.
Yeah, no, it's so funny. We looked at a house yesterday.
Yeah.
And we're like, we're not going competitive offers.
Well, this is it, right?
And, here's our offer, less realtor fees, and we're having nothing to do with competing offers. And I believe that a lot of people feel that way now.
But that's what's really come, is that there's a patience that exists in the market now that wasn't there for 2021 and 2022, the first half of 22, where people felt so desperate to get into the market. I remember talking to the woman who was our babysitter at the time, and she was just so desperate to get a home that she was saying things like, well, we didn't really love it, so we only went $150,000 over the list price. And I thought, what a strange combination of words to put together that is, right?
Yeah, wow.
And so, that is gone, I think. There's a patience now. If people really love the house and it's a very special or unique or great product, or even a very good product, I think they are being aggressive with it. But there are houses as well that that are coming on the market and they're sitting. And,
yes.
So there's an ability to be patient there.
Your last question, where do you feel so I personally think we're going to be like this for the next few years.
Yep.
Is that your sentiment
as
well?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I describe it this way to a lot of people. We were on a train that was kind of drifting in one direction, which was, a steady up. Then we took a sharp turn and went up dramatically. And then we took a sharp turn the other direction, and we probably underperformed what the path was that we were on. And I think we're getting back on that path, which is people recognize there's still great value in Atlantic Canada. It's a wonderful place to live. There's lots of people coming here. All those supply-demand pressures are going to exist there. Is it going to create the craziness that we saw in 2021? I don't think so.
No.
But I also don't think that we're in a position where we're going to see prices come off significantly. There's just too much interest in people entering the housing market, from people coming to Atlantic Canada and millennials who are moving out of their parents' homes to go into homes. That's the driving factor behind all of these things, and I think we're going to continue to drift in the right direction in terms of price, and we'll see more transactions happen over the next few years.
I agree wholeheartedly. Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
It always is my pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks.